blows my mind is that not everyone has this obsession. And I don't just mean like it's not common. I mean, why is this not a billion-dollar industry? There is something very, very profound and personal, like a fingerprint, about someone's singing voice. The tone alone, not the words they're singing, not the rasp, not anything, just literally the tone of it. And that is all to do really with the shape of your vocal fold. Living in this era where we've had all these singing shows, we've had like Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, The X Factor. So why is there not some way of just easily improving your voice? So hello, you wonderful human of the internet, and welcome to a day where I really feel like punching someone in the arse. And as such, I thought it might be fun to take a break from my normal content and just make a video waffling about my weirdest autistic special interest. I might make a couple more videos talking about autistic special interest, to be honest, because I think it might be fun. I like hearing about other people's weird passions, so either you'll just think that is weird, or you might kind of fall down a rabbit hole too. I don't know. So this special interest of mine, I've had it since I was about 11 or 12. Ever since I kind of discovered like music and started listening to music, I developed this very, very niche obsession with singers' vocal cords and the shape of them and the way they sound, but in a very specific way. And what blows my mind is that not everyone has this obsession. And I don't just mean like it's not common. I mean, why is this not a billion-dollar industry? So to explain what I mean, if you've ever read my first book, The Putrescent Vein, it starts with a story called Beef Elvis. And Beef Elvis came about because of this weird special interest that I got thinking, plastic surgery is such a big thing, right? People are obsessed with changing the way they look. There are so many things you can do to change the way that you look. So why is there not some way of just easily improving your voice? I feel like almost nobody sings the way they want to sing. Like whatever music you're into, even if you've got a good voice and you can sing, right, probably chances are the kind of music and the kind of singers you want to sound like, that's probably not what you sound like, because it's just luck of the draw what you end up with. So why is it not a thing that you can have like a little bit of filler maybe injected into your vocal cords to kind of make them bump together in a different way, or just like a little bit sliced out to make them bump together in a different way? And obviously there's going to be a lot of people thinking, well, we don't do that because we don't know how to do it without wrecking your voice completely. We don't know what changes would be wrought in the sound of your voice by sticking filler in there. What are you talking about? But that's how it's been with every area of surgery on the human body. We didn't know how to do these things until someone went and researched it. And I've seen enough videos of cameras down singers' throats to see like vocal cords flapping together in different ways. If we studied enough singers' vocal cords in this way, we would know exactly where to put the filler and where to take little bits of flesh off to make certain sounds and certain tones. And this is the thing I find so fascinating and so frustrating, that medicine has never, and science has never wandered into these waters. Why is it just me who's fixated on this? Like just plastic surgery for the vocal cords. So the story Beef Elvis, it kind of came from me thinking this, and it turned into this, what about if in the future they replace all human singers with pieces of genetically modified meat that they've grown into the shape of vocal cords? So you go to a concert and you watch this flapping piece of meat on stage that's singing, and it sounds exactly like Elvis or Joe Strummer or Billie Holiday or whoever, because they've taken a digital fingerprint. This is getting very enthusiastic here. They've taken a digital fingerprint of the singer's vocal cords and they've grown this piece of chicken flesh into or cow flesh rather. I decided cow flesh was probably more resonant, so cow flesh would be better for faking singers' voices. So you go to a concert and you watch. We're getting very, very meta here, but so it's the year like 2050 or something. Probably didn't pitch it far enough in the future really, but it's the year 2050. You're at a gig. Everybody is high on this weird drug that doesn't exist anymore. Everyone's throwing luminous peas around because that exists too, and that they've replaced glow sticks. I guess it's a carbon footprint thing. And you're just watching this rippling, pulsating piece of meat. But out of it is singing the best performance of whoever your favourite vocalist is. It's like their best ever live performance is coming out of this rippling piece of meat. But the trouble with the Beef Elvis technology, well, I don't know why I'm just getting so deep into this story when there's only a very small part of, I haven't really explained the special interest yet, but yeah, so the downside of the Beef Elvis technology of being able to create your favourite singer as a piece of meat, the downside is that you can make them say whatever you want. So you're taking classic voices like Elvis and Kurt Cobain and you're making them sing about just the most trivial shit. And that is basically where the idea for that story came from, was just my special interest in spinning it off into bizarre places. But to pull back from that random waffle about Beef Elvis, the special interest in vocal cords. So it started when I got into music, and my very first favourite singer when I was about 11 or 12, being in the UK in the 90s, it was Liam Gallagher of Oasis. And obviously back in his Oasis days, he had really quite a raspy voice. And I was obsessed with like, why can't I sing like that? Why can't I sing like that at all? Whenever my parents would go out, I would just scream the house down, singing Oasis songs or just literally yelling, because I was convinced if I scream enough, I'm going to wreck my vocal cords and they're going to sound raspier. Never happened. Did this for years, never happened. Then when I was about, I don't know, 13, 14 or something like that, I discovered Courtney Love. And I was like, fuck me, women actually can have vocal cords that sound raspy. And I listened and I listened and I tracked down every live performance I could find. I listened and I listened. And it occurred to me that, like, dude, this woman has, like, as I thought of the terminology that I thought of it of back then was like, she has this scratch pad in her throat. Like, you listen particularly to the ends of like vocalizations, and she'll go from like a clean note and then she just leans into this scratch pad in her throat and it kind of goes into a distortion. I was like, why can't I do that? Why is that? Because my natural, I mean, if you've ever heard my singing voice, you're probably like, what the fuck are you on about? That your singing voice is quite scratchy. It didn't used to be when I was like, before I wrecked it, basically. It didn't used to be. My singing voice was like, had no rasp, no distortion whatsoever anywhere, and I hated it. I mean, to be fair, I'm never going to be a great singer, but my natural voice, because like distortion, if you've got rasp in your voice, it hides a lot of flaws. It really does, because you're just covering up the sound with this brrr sound. It covers up a lot of flaws. So my natural voice without the distortion that it eventually developed was shit, really. I mean, it's shit now, but it was really shit then. So anyway, you know, I was falling down this rabbit hole and discovering more singers, and I was really critical of different types of rasp. I still kind of am. I still have my favourite types of rasp. When it comes to male singers, probably the singer of AWOL Nation. I know people say he sounds like Kermit the Frog, and there's that, but I don't think so. I think his screams in some live versions of Sail that I've heard are just brain-meltingly amazing. I love his voice. God, who else on the male side? Bruce Springsteen on Murder Incorporated. That would probably be one of my kind of ideal male voices. On the female side, I recently discovered Light Asylum, and there's only really one track, Dark Alleys, or Dark Allies, it's spelled, but I think it's supposed to be Dark Alleys. That's the only track that I've really heard her do this vocal gymnastics on, but fuck, her voice. Seriously, I got my thing, you know, for like the how many plays you've done this year of each song. I've listened to Dark Alleys like just the most absurd amount of times in the last year. And most of that was just rewinding this one bit and just listening to her voice and going, how does anyone do that? That is not human. That is amazing. But yeah, it's largely been female vocalists that I have this real fixation on vocal rasp with, because I feel like males, it's more common. Like, a lot of men have rasp in their voice when they're singing. Like, it's I'd say probably more men have rasp in their voice than don't when they're singing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just listen to too much metal and things. But I think most guys have a bit of rasp if they push their voice enough. There's a bit of rasp there. Whereas I would say probably with women. The vast majority don't. So when you do get a female singer who has some rasp, it's really just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I don't even mean really just singers like screaming their fucking head off. What's that song? Like Jessie J did that. Is it Bang or Shout or something? I think it's called Bang. I don't know. But there's one song, and I don't know if she had like a cold or something when she went to it, but the rasp in her voice on that song is just the most gorgeous thing. And, you know, I heard that one song and I was like tracking down everything else. I was like, she doesn't normally have this rasp in her voice. I'm so disappointed. And I bet she is too. And I think, oh man, something that really stuck with me for a long time and then was probably I feel rude saying this because even though I'm sure this person will never see this video in a million years, it does concern another person and something that they may be touchy about. And I don't like to talk about that stuff, even if they're like a celebrity and there's like no chance they're ever going to see the video. It still feels bad saying it. So maybe I'll just say, I think you know who I mean. But there were two rock stars, male and female, kind of what it takes to make a baby, who both had the most seminal voices in grunge, right? And both of them had pronounced rasp in their voice. I've mentioned one of them already. And they had a baby. This was like grunge eugenics for me, like awful way to put it. But I was like, oh my God, like this kid, if this kid ever starts singing, that is going to be the most monstrous, like amazing voice that you've ever heard in your life. And I waited about 30 years for this to happen. And then the kid did sing, and she had a bit of a phase of singing on Instagram, and her voice is clean as a whistle. There is no rasp there at all. And I was like, how does that happen? That's gotta really suck. I feel like, you know, when probably like, I can't be the only person in the world who was expecting this human being to have this rock monster of a voice, and then they didn't. So the reason maybe that they don't, it can come down to upbringing, I think, particularly with females and raspy vocal cords, that I have heard that if you are neglected as a child and you are just left to scream and scream and scream, it is more likely to leave you with a raspy voice when you're older, and like a deeper voice as well when you're older. And I'm like, when I first heard this theory, I was like, does that kind of explain why my voice is so deep? Because when I was a kid, it was the era of, I can't remember what the name of this child rearing like awful technique was, but basically the technique being pitched to parents in the mid-80s was that if you have this child and it's screaming, you just let them scream. You don't go to them. You'll make them needy. Babies don't need parenting. They don't need comforting. They don't need soothing. Just let it fucking scream. This was what they were pitching to parents in the 80s, right? So that was how I was brought up, was like, just leave it and it's caught screaming. It'll shut up eventually. And that probably explains why my voice sounds like this, right? Because my dad's voice is really high. Well, not, you know, it doesn't sound like he's been eating helium or anything, but my dad has quite a high singing voice and a very clean singing voice. And you can hear my dad's singing voice, in my enunciation and things like that. I feel like that, and it kind of annoys me because I don't, that's not how I want to sound. He has a very polite sounding singing voice and I don't want to sound polite when I sing. So that kind of bugs me. So I have a lot of my dad in my singing voice, but his voice is high, my voice is really low. Because when I was growing up and before I got diagnosed with autism and before I learned how to socialize and all of this, I had a very autistic voice as well. You know, the very kind of monotonal, just state things. There is no expression in anything. So then my voice was really kind of at its lowest pitch, you know, and you add in depression to that and then you're just really, fuck, everything sucks. So when I was a kid, you know, I'd be like this little kid in a school uniform and you'd say hi to me. I'd be like, hi. It'd be really weird. And I did get the piss taken out of me a lot for that. And So when I heard this theory about like child neglect and stuff, I was like, well, fuck, does that explain why why my voice sounds like this? Is that it? I think it explains a lot of other things too, actually. That whole like don't soothe your child technique in the 80s. Apparently, if you were raised like that, you never learned how to self-soothe, right? So you're not good at calming yourself down. You're not good at managing your emotions because you never rode those roller coasters when you were a baby. This is a tangent, but this is kind of another special interest of mine, is this whole thing in the 80s and this like what it does to you. Yeah, because your emotions as a baby, they go up naturally. Things happen, you know, you need your nappy changing or you're hungry or whatever, and you go, and this is as stressful as it gets for a baby. Usually, you know, unless you're really abused. But then someone's supposed to soothe you and your emotions come down and you learn, you know what, even when I feel like this, it's going to be okay because things are going to come down again. But if no one comes to get you, it's just, and eventually you shut up because you realize no one's coming. There's no point screaming. You're going to conserve energy. So, but you're still at this place and you're like, you learn that nothing gets better and nothing fixes you, and you don't learn how to manage your emotions. So you become a giant drug addict. That's how it goes for a lot of people. And I think, you know, does that explain a lot of the music of of kind of the 90s and stuff, that it was kids who were raised this way, and you know there was such a big drug scene and so much angry, depressed music. Is it you know, because of these? I mean, who came up with this idea? Sorry, this is so far off topic, but who came up with this fucking idea anyway? Yeah, so the vocal cords thing. So I think I reached peak obsession with vocal cords and singers when I was introduced to the Distillers, because if you've never listened to Brody Dalle singing and you've never listened to the Distillers, please go and do so. I recommend probably the first track to get into is The Hunger. Everyone likes The Hunger, but Hall of Mirrors I think is probably my favourite track of all time. Because my theories about vocal cords, the minute I heard Brody Dalle, my theories about vocal cords kind of multiplied and just went off in a million different directions. Because I was used to thinking of vocal rasp in singers as, like, say, this scratch pad in your voice that you've kind of got the clean note and then you kind of rub it up against the scratch pad and it distorts. And that's honestly that seems to be how it is for a lot of singers. Particularly, I think, female singers, because the rasp is less of a just their thing like it is with male singers. It's more of a, you have to force the voice a little bit and then you get the rasp. But Brody Dalle sounds like she has a cheese grater for a throat. She does not have one scratch pad. She doesn't have one kind of type, like, pitch of rasp that kind of pops in, or one tone of rasp that pops in, because it can get quite tedious listening to someone with one tone of rasp that they just, you know, they've got clean, they've got rasp, they've got clean, they've got rasp, they just come in and out of it, and it gets quite tedious. And that's how I feel about my voice. But Brody Dalle, like, say, voice like a cheese grater. The rasp is all around. She's got about 6 different tones of rasp in her voice that just alternate. And it's absolutely hypnotic. But round about this time was when my own voice started changing. It was, like I said this in the video about, what was the video about? Gender and writing. Yeah, that's what the video was about. I talked about my voice changing because it was weird. I'd written this character who becomes a vampire. Her voice changes. She's in a band. 3 months later, my own voice started changing completely. My singing voice started changing completely. And I would like to put this down to pure kind of weird literary vampiric magic. No, I think my voice probably started changing because when I was writing at that time, I was constantly smoking weed. So, you know, unfiltered, king skins, getting through about 20 of them a day when I was writing. It was just disgusting and awful. I don't recommend it to anyone. But after about 3 months of that abuse, my singing voice just started rasping. I did spend a while kind of studying like false chord and fry screams and thinking, can I develop a rasp like this? Like I think many people do if they want to be able to sing like a kind of heavier musician and you don't have that kind of voice. You look into these techniques, and these techniques are always peddled by singing tutors who want you to believe that anyone can do this, that like, oh, you know, false chord and fry, like anyone can do this. Anyone can make their voice raspy with this. It's absolute horse shit. I'm sorry, but it's horse shit. Just the same as your normal vocal cords, these chords are going to vary, and some people are going to have ones that sound amazing and that are very accessible, and other people are just not going to have that shape to their vocal folds. Because I've found I've never tried very hard at false chord screaming, you know, the really kind of deep stuff. I've never been very interested in that because I just don't like how it sounds. It's very generic to me. It doesn't sound as kind of wild and unhinged and beautiful as someone screaming raspily with their natural chords. Fry screams I do like a lot more. So I did try with those, and I found that there were certain times of day that I could do them quite well, but most of the time I couldn't at all. So I was like, well, this is not the path. But this kind of cemented to me, it's about like 1% technique, I feel like, singing with rasp. Like, it's the shape of your vocal cords, which brings us full circle to why is there not some way of just easily improving your voice by changing the shape of your vocal folds? Because I swear to God, like, it, you know, there's a lot you can do with technique and there's a lot you can do with learning, but there is something very, very profound and personal, like a fingerprint about someone's singing voice. There is just like a snapshot you get of someone's personality out of their singing voice. You know, someone like Lana Del Rey, for instance, has this very kind of like jaded sound to her voice. Or someone like Brody Dalle, when she's not screaming, when she's singing, there's this kind of like very sorrowful, very kind of like hopeless sound to her voice that's just gorgeous. There's this huge snapshot you get of people just from the tone of their singing voice. And that is all to do really with the shape of your vocal folds. Like, yes, you can change the ways you enunciate, you can sing lower or sing higher, and particularly if you're a contralto, singing lower and higher does tend to give you multiple voices. Like, you do tend to have this very, very low, different sounding bit to your high bit. It sounds like two different people. I think Lana Del Rey, again, is a really good example of that. But all the same, most of it is just the shape of your vocal fold. You can't put on someone else's vocal fingerprint without having the shape of their vocal folds. Hence the whole fascination with the Beef Elvis story and thinking, why there's no one out there like scanning and kind of trying to get digital imagery of famous singers' vocal cords, because what do they look like? Can we recreate them? Like, when they're gone, can we recreate their vocal folds with meat or with plastic or something so that we can still have their voice around singing different things? I think that would be so fascinating. So this special interest gets very, 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 very technical and very, very sci-fi and very, very weird, when really all it is like, when I was little, I didn't sing the way I wanted to sing, and it pissed me off. That's really all it boils down to. I think actually another honourable mention for raspy voices that sound amazing, I actually don't know the guy's name, which is pretty terrible, but Fields of the Nephilim, lead singer, when he sings, he doesn't scream or anything, but he's got this rusted over, like, cobwebbed sound to his voice. He sounds like a vampire who's been asleep in a tomb for about 1,000 years, and he's just come creaking out of the tomb, and it's like atmospheric as fuck. I love that guy's voice, and I've been listening to him for, again, over 20 years, and I don't know his name. I'm generally not one of these people about bands and singers. I don't really care about digging into the history and finding out all these things. You know, I've been waffling for a really long time now, and I guess I've probably covered the majority of my fascination with vocal cords. As I say, obviously when my own voice changed and I was finally able to make somewhat the kinds of sound that I like to make, I would still kill for Brody Dalle's voice, like, or Taylor Momsen's, actually, either of them. They're probably my two favourite female voices that I would go for. On the male side, as I say, I don't know, probably Bruce Springsteen or Fields of the Nephilim guy, maybe one or the other. Or Johnny Cash, actually. He doesn't have rasp, but just his voice is so unique and so wry and just the humour in his voice. I feel like there's just always this note of kind of dry humour to his voice, like that's his vocal fingerprint to me. And obviously Elvis. Elvis had a really, really underrated rock and roll growl when he wanted to. Blue Suede Shoes and Hound Dog, particularly when you're just screaming along to them like a nutter in the car. It sounds awful, but it's fun. So it's a good thing. I've literally never performed live to anyone in my life. I nearly did once. There was this listing online for an open mic night that was punk, like a punk open mic night. I lost my shit at this. I was like, oh my God, I practiced for about 3 weeks. I was like, I'm going to go to this punk open mic night. It's going to be amazing. Thank the Lord I looked them up before I went, because I looked them up and all the people on the website, no one looked very punk. They all, they would do these just geezers, really. They were just normal pub geezers. So I phoned them and I was like, is the punk open mic night on next Thursday? Because I'm thinking about coming. And they were like, what? Yeah, there's an open mic night. What did you say? I was like, punk themed. It's punk themed, right? And they were like, no. I don't think we've ever had a punk performer. I was like, well, someone's put you on the internet as a punk open mic night and you nearly got me singing fucking, I'm not even giving you the titles. I'm not even giving you the titles. Some of you probably know the titles of kind of the things I was going to be singing. Things like British Sick was going to be one of them, and Pissing on the Monarchy. You do not want me to come down to your non-punk open mic night and sing Pissing on the Monarchy to completely normal geezers. Really badly and really shakily, because I've never performed live anywhere before, and so that nearly happened, and that was terrible. But other than that, I've never like busked. I've never done anything. I've never inflicted myself on the general public, but my poor neighbours get quite a bit of it. For a while, I had my personal heaven, which was to have 2 amps in I had like massive amps in my room. And I ran my electric guitar through one of them, and I ran my vocals through the other one. And being able to like put reverb on your voice and just scream your ass off and have it all echoing around in a tiny little room is one of the most cathartic things I've ever experienced in my life. My neighbours must have hated every minute of that, because I know there's like a drummer on our road now, and that annoys the piss out of me. So let alone someone singing my terrible songs with my terrible voice at like, maximum decibels. No good. But anyway, yeah, there's actually like a recording studio not that far away that I used to go to now and then. They're open like 24 hours a day. You just text them and go like, can I come down and make a racket? And it's like 4 a.m. You can do it. That's really cool. I need to get back into that because that was fun. But anyway, this is a huge tangent. So yeah, my weirdest one of my most long running special interests is vocal rasp. And why there isn't plastic surgery to create vocal rasp or to just give greater flavour and character to people's voices. Why are we doing so much shit to our faces that you can do with makeup, but like your voice, you can't really do much with that. And it seems like it would just be not that difficult, really, to just alter the shape of your vocal cords. It happens when you get a cold. It happens when you choke on pineapple juice or smoke too much. It changes. So why can't we do this with a bit of filler or a bit of something? Like, why is no one doing this? One of my weird special interests. So if you have an odd special interest that you want to get really deep and meta about, then maybe go for it. If you make videos, maybe go do it in a video, because then you can really waffle about it and tag me somewhere so I can see it. But anyway, thank you for tolerating this huge waffle, because I do feel actually quite cheerful now. And really, like, when I started sitting down to make a video today, I would rather have punched someone in the arse than made a video today, and now I feel quite cheerful. So thank you for tolerating this massive. Is this remotely understandable? It's really gone a bit meta here in various places, but hopefully that was not too intolerable of a waffle. So thank you for listening. Tell me about your special interest. I'm going to go away now.